Okay, you're live.
Hello, we should be live. Let us know in the chat if we're live, and you can see the birthday boy here.
Not me.
Not you.
Just for clarification.
And then if you guys have any audio things, let us know as well. This is Donald on the background mic. We just want to make sure it all sounds good.
This feels weird to me. It's been a while since I've been across from you at one of these things.
Yeah, that's how we started, but we've mostly replaced you with Dan.
Yes.
And maybe Donald. Mm-hmm. Did you know Donald was now a co-host on the podcast?
That's what I heard.
We promoted him.
I think we should demote him, just for good measure.
Well, Dan will probably come up with something eventually. Dan won't let you enjoy and revel in this victory very long, Donald.
You know, victory is a relative term I have found, but it's been great.
Are you mic'd as well?
I am mic'd.
Okay, good.
Happy birthday, everybody. We were discussing while we were waiting for them to figure out why it wanted to start 2 live streams at once. We were talking about new pen lore. If you've watched me sign things, I have switched pens. I used to use these guys. No, that's not one of them. I used to use these guys. The Zebra Sarasa Dry X. And they just didn't dry quite fast enough. So we are now moving to what my artist friends say, and we're using a Micron 12 from Pigma. And those dry super fast and are also, all the artists say they're more archival than even regular Bic ink, and they say they have to use them. So this is what we're moving to as I sign Way of Kings Volume 1, which I believe we are all sold out of the signed ones.
I believe so.
And so I need to get another set going for you. So for those watching, stay away from the chat. They're allowed to post spoilers right now in their conversations. We're going to do the giveaway first so that those who are watching and simply want to see what happens with the giveaway can know if they're getting a sword or not, and then can leave before I start being very spoilerific.
Yes.
So, Adam, you take over. Tell us.
The chat won't believe this, but I actually won the drawing.
Oh, did you?
So sorry to disappoint everybody.
Yeah.
The winner is actually Chris Coleman.
Oh, Chris Coleman.
Chris Coleman. If your name is Chris Coleman, we will be emailing you for additional information we need to ship a sword to you. So keep an eye on your email.
There aren't multiple Chris Colemans watching.
Well, Matt checked, and he said there's only one Chris Coleman who's on the feed.
On the feed.
Or on the segment.
So congratulations, Chris. You're going to get a sword. I think the one that we have is ours, and the Smith made 2.
Correct.
It is going to ship one directly to Chris. The other thing you guys should know and be aware of is we still have, when does the charity auction end? Tonight sometime?
I will double check, and I can get that for you guys.
I should know. It is my wife who's running that.
Yeah.
You know.
We have all the wonderful paintings that were done based on my Magic card artwork that are up for bid. They're roughly going for, last I looked, around $750 to $1,000 each. They are originals with my own wonderful pencil work. It was probably pencil underneath.
Some of the stuff is just crazy.
There are multiples that I wanted to buy until Jane told me, Brandon, you can't bid on an auction you are holding. It's called self-dealing. It is illegal. And so I'm like, oh.
And I will say, just to confirm, you guys have about 5 hours to get all these done if you want the paintings done from Brandon and his friends.
I think we also have my dad's jewelry up there.
Yes, we do.
With a little video about him. My dad, the wonderful jewelry maker.
I don't know what has happened for that, but Jane told me there was one bid for $5,000 on one of the pieces. So
wow.
My dad makes some good jewelry.
I bet that's going to give him a very large ego.
I can't decide which of the artworks are my favorite, but the one I most wanted to own, I think, is Steve Argyle as a vampire trying to sell me Magic cards.
Yeah, was that your favorite as well?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. And for those who have not seen the piece, the cards are the Power 9.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
It's and Steve painted it as himself because I used him as the model when I was sketching it, and very fond of that one. But they all turned out really well. The Tameo one is beautiful.
Awesome.
Even though it's not Tameo, we have to be careful. I don't know what the legality of this is.
These are inspired cards from Magic pieces.
Yes.
Yes.
I tried to stay away from trying to use their characters, but one of the cards was Tamio herself, and I'm like, and then of course we have Yasna eating pizza with my interpretation of an Eldrazi. So lots of cool things. The Esther's painting of a crow as an AVR
That might be my favorite.
Yeah,
It's gorgeous.
Donato's. Donato's is
for the
amazing.
ring is amazing.
He maybe enhanced me the most. So,
But they're all worth checking out.
They are.
So go take a look.
all right. So from now on, I am answering spoiler things. So
Yeah, we were going to start doing a few just from the Reddit thread.
few from the Reddit thread, and we'll
then
watch
if you
this
see
thing.
questions that you like, you can.
Does pizza exist on Roshar? No, it's non-canonical. But it's Cthulhu Monster brought her pizza. So, Stay of the Sanderson is up, for those asking. What am I signing? Way of Kings, leather-bound tip-in pages, or I guess first signature. You can watch the beginning of the stream if you missed it for new pen lore.
It's very exciting.
Shard Fork merch. Put that on the list. That's a good idea.
Oh, that is fun.
I did sign a Shard Fork at Nexus this year.
Oh, really?
Yep. Yeah.
I've seen him for cosplay before, but
Sam
before.
says, will there be broadsheets equivalent to Ghost Bloods? Yes, there will be. In-world comic books.
Oh, very cool.
Yes, that's what we're planning right now. So hit me.
Okay. First one is from Page Runner and Legion Rip. It says, in a non-spoiler Q&A at Worldcon, you talked about a character who was going to die in Wind and Truth.
Yes.
In your outline. But that when you got to writing the book, you realized the character wouldn't make that choice and would go a different direction and so survived.
Yes, this is a big one. I'm glad. And this is the biggest change I think I made. I actually saw that email. What is the biggest change there? It's twofold. One is boring. I changed Dalinar's flashbacks to being in book 3 and Zeth's flashbacks to being in book 5. That's the biggest change, I would say. Along with Adolin's increased part and role in the story since book 1, that sent a cascading effect through the outlines. But I was very well outlined by the time we got here that Adolin was going to do his whole thing that happened in here. The existence of the Unoath was not in the original outlines. It's a completely new thing. But I rebuilt those outlines in the years intervening, so you will find them in the outlines and whatnot. The big change that I made when I was working on this book specifically is Zeth was going to die. And so why did it not work? Well, Zeth was going to be consumed at the end by Nightblood. He was going to let himself be consumed in a way that was kind of like a suicide in order to kind of spit in the face of what's going on and refuse what was happening to him. And as I worked on the outline and I worked on who he was, I'm like, Zeth, of all the characters, can't be the person who doesn't take the next step. The whole theme of take the next step, I'm like, I cannot have, even though it wasn't a full suicide, I couldn't have a heroic suicide at the end of Stormlight 5, even if it was only a sideways one. I realized during outlining, and this was actually a beta reader pushed me on this. Not that in any version did they read the Zeth die, but he fully renounced in an early version the Skybreakers. And one of the beta readers, I'll not out them because, I don't want people going to the beta readers and be like, you changed what I would have liked. Pointed out that isn't it stronger if Zeth works to rehabilitate the Skybreakers rather than just renouncing them completely? And I'm like, yeah, that's what Zeth would do. It wasn't something that I had been thinking about because I had been thinking about Zeth dying until I got to the outline for this book. And then I'm like, it's not right. So there's not a scene written ever where he did that. By the time I was working on the outlines for this book, but you've got to remember, like, these outlines stretch back 15 years at this point, and I have a much better understanding of mental health and you know, the characters and things like this. And as soon as I got to that in my initial outlining, I'm like, wow, this was a terrible idea. And you will see that in your early outlines. Because you've grown so much as a writer and your characters have grown so much where you're like, what was I thinking by having Zeth, you know, essentially give up and get consumed by Nightblood at the end of this book? Just not a very good idea. So it never really was going to happen. I don't think I would have ever done that. But yeah, there you are.
Well, a question from me that's kind of related. Since I have a microphone and I can hijack the stream if I want to. I'm sure everyone is very excited about this question.
Yeah.
But as you've written so many stories and things like that, has there been a character that has really surprised you about their change or their growth from the beginning of a book compared to an end of a book?
It's hard to say because surprise is such a weird term. A lot of authors use that in regards to what happens. What's really going on is as you're writing, you are making connections, you are getting to know the characters better, you're getting to understand the themes better. Almost no one ends up exactly where you imagine them. But I tend to be more on target than most writers, I would say. Like if you look at the end, Way of Kings is a cheat because I knew I'd written Way of Kings before and I knew what I'd written wrong. But if you look at like the entire growth of the Stormlight archive, it's obviously Adolin, right? Everyone else basically ended up where I had imagined they would at the end in some shape or another. But then we did just change. We did just change Zeth. So yeah. I did see a question here. What is 7-layer freefall burrito world? So on the podcast, I once discussed with Dan this idea I had for a world where everybody was always in freefall, that there were continents falling through an endless hole. And so it was like 5 continents above each other, stacked above, and you could step out of the windshield and and essentially be blown upward to others. You could skydive alongside them. You could dive without any sort of magical sort of things. They were falling at similar to the velocity, the terminal velocity of a human being. And so if you knew how to manipulate that, you could, essentially wingsuit upward or dive downward. And Dan named it 7-layer freefall burrito world because you fall through the different layers of the burrito.
And it really just rolls off the top.
Yeah. I don't know why he didn't say, dip. It feels like chip dip,
Dip world.
Dip world, but he called it freefall 7-layer burrito world. So, yeah.
There was a related question to the first one from PageRunner from Roberto Serrano, 2003. They say, what was the difference between the epilogue you wrote in Wind and Truth over a decade ago that went unused due to timing issues with the epilogue in the published version?
Okay, so epilogue in the published version was very similar, except Wit was on Roshar.
Oh.
And I realized, and this is one of these things, this is another thing that happens to you when you're working on books. Like, you don't always see the conundrums until you're in the thick of it. That conundrum was there. Roshar getting stuck in time dilation, and Wit ending at the end on Roshar, just and kind of morose. The same sort of morose feeling that you get from it. He's like, it's gone wrong. I've messed up again. Right? It's essentially where Wit is. He's like, I have screwed this up again. I tried really hard this time and I messed up, and he was on Roshar. I had to get him off Roshar in order to get around time dilation timing issues. And that, I actually started making that revision in Oathbringer. I was aware of this conundrum by Oathbringer. And so I don't think it made it into Oathbringer. I wanted, so my original thought was to have seeding, him leaving some of his, getting some cultures off world of himself to try this out. And I don't think it ended up happening. I was going to send some with Rock, but I didn't ever write the Rock novella in time. And so, but by Oathbringer, I was aware of this and working on, all right, he's going to have to get off. And I mean, Odium would vaporize him the moment that he found him anyway. And so it ended up working out really well. The other big revision is a lot of my editors and many of the beta readers were really worried about how downer of an ending Wind and Truth was, particularly the editors. This wasn't the beta readers as much. This was the editors. And this is, Tor and Galance. And I'm like, it's a downer of an ending, I know. I can maybe give Wit a little of an upbeat turn. And so the epilogue changed just a tad as I had him do something I wasn't planning for anyone to do until the back five has realized Dalinar made a decision that nobody was expecting, but that is maybe the best decision he could have, even if you think it through. At first, it seems like a pretty terrible one, but having Wit acknowledge, okay, this is good. This will work, and so that's the other big tweak to the epilogue. Otherwise, it's the same epilogue, so it's very similar. It's just a location change and then a little tweak of it being more upbeat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question from the Reddit thread says,
Tyler, by the way, Rock did leave Roshar. He's off Roshar by the beginning of Wind and Truth.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know that because we've already foreshadowed them being met. Who meets them? Milan meets them at the end of the Mistborn era 2.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So know that the Horn Eaters have left. Milan was there. We've seen them. So the
blew a lot of people's.
Oh yeah, they hadn't seen
I
that.
had no
Yeah.
idea this is a thing.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
That's there at the back of that one. So Milan meets Rock. Yes.
What? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought you guys had figured that out by now.
Welcome to the spoiler stream.
No, was it Milan? Milan met Shodell. No, she met Rock, didn't she? Yeah. I'm pretty sure I put that in. Maybe I just let the surprises that I'm concerned. So Argent, you did know that, right? You guys had already guessed that.
The surprises that you were.
Yeah. She says redheads. Okay. Yeah. So you guys did know that. Milan met the redheads. Milan met the Horn Eaters.
I agree with Ruth right there. You overestimate my intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, I remember reading that everybody had guessed it, and so yeah. So there you are. So don't spread that too much to the people who don't want to have spoilers, because that's definitely part of the Rock novella. But yeah, so there you are. No more Horn Eaters. They have all. Well, not all. There's definitely some left behind, but Horn Eater exodus off of Roshar has happened by now.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah. And Milan was there meeting with Rock. They needed a little help. They were kind of lost. It's easy to get lost in Shadesmar.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Next Reddit question says, now that there are no Mistborn in the Mistborn series and there's no Stormlight in the Stormlight series, should we expect the city of Elantris to be destroyed next?
That's a good question. You can get a Raffo, but
I'll have Jack write Raffo in the chat.
You shouldn't expect the. I didn't imagine this was the theme. So yeah, there we are. Milan, no Milan in the Horn Eater novella. Well, are they off by? They might not be fully off of Roshar by. So I think what's going to happen for the time dilation is anyway. There's going to be weird things where they've gotten caught in some of the time dilation. We'll figure it out in the timeline. But yeah, they are. Yeah, that was the Horn Eaters. So.
Sounds like a problem for Karen in the future.
Yeah, problem for Karen in the future. Are there Mistborn? Well, they're like someone says, Are there Mistborn? Well, there is no more Warbreaker in Warbreaker because he's gone too. Wait a minute. You're right. There is no. So Warbreaker has left Warbreaker. The truth is there are some Mistborn, right? Because I think Marsh still counts, right? He's a hemalurgic Mistborn. Marsh still counts. Other than that, like, I guess if you don't count hemalurgically made Mistborn, there aren't any. I don't think. It's still possible, though. As someone has said, it's very, very difficult, and there aren't any right now, but it's possible. What is going on with the naming schemes? Yeah. Wow. There's, wow. I did it to 3 of the 4 Cosmere series. There's still a Yuumi and the Nightmare Painter in.
There are no more nightmares and Yuumis.
There's no more nightmares than Yuumi. Yeah, okay. There's still an
Elantris.
There's still an Emerald Sea. There's no more zombies in Elantris.
But the more concerning would be there would be no more Tress. Like, I think this is why people are worried.
Maybe she started going by Glorf, and then it's no longer Tress of the Emerald Sea. Maybe she embraced her heritage. You're right. Wax is a Mistborn. You're right. So there you go. Wax is a Mistborn. Hoyt is a Mistborn. They both had Lerasian beads. So as long as Hoyt is there and Wax is still around, you still have Mistborn. And Wax kind of knows, but he doesn't tell anybody. So.
Very nice name 16 says, in Emberdark, we're told that the only way to go to a planet without a perpendicularity is to use an FTL ship.
Yes.
And in Sunlit, Sigil says that methods to get to planets without perpendicularities are very recent.
Yes.
Why can't you just use transportation to go from the cognitive to the physical? Transportation is capitalized.
Yep. Yeah. So you'll find out more about that when we get there. When we get to the back 5 and we talk about it. You should, but how should we say? There's a couple things going on there. Obviously, Hoyd does it. So it is possible to do, right? We will find out, and in these cases, most people they're mostly talking about like large scale. Like, if a person wants to go there, they can. And we will get to why transportation isn't an option. That doesn't mean an individual couldn't figure out how to get onto. Oh, yes, I forgot about the Ghostblood Kelsier, who's totally a Mistborn. Totally hasn't lost all his powers. So just understand that it is possible. They're both kind of wrong, but if you're talking in general terms, there are very, very rare exceptions without FTL. And I mean, one of those exceptions is to just bring a whole how do I say this as Brandon? A whole metric strawberry ton of investiture with you, and that will puncture into the physical realm from if you do it right. So it's harder to go from cognitive to physical. If you have that in physical, it happens automatically. Much harder to do, but yeah, it happens very naturally in physical. So if you could get a bunch of investiture together in the physical realm, it will make a hole so that you could get through. So there's ways.
Have you guys mapped out like light year distances for the system?
Yes, Isaac has, but I don't know if we're going to release that.
No, that was just a curiosity question.
Yeah. So, and I have announced this before. This is a more nuanced question than I've answered before on this. But transportation, most forms of teleportation in the Cosmere work at speed of light.
Oh, okay.
Transportation works at speed of light. So else calling, else gates work at speed of light. Span reads work at speed of light. Most of your uses are speed of light. So
interesting.
So there are a few ways around speed of light, but
and do you mind if I interrupt questions? Sorry.
Yeah.
Chat.
Oh no.
There's something that I wanted to give Brandon for a while.
Oh dear. Is this a gift for me?
This
for
is
birthday?
a gift for you.
Okay.
I totally spaced it, and I looked down. I was like, oh yeah, I should give that to you. So
okay.
Without further ado. It's not small.
It is not small. Okay. Is this part of your family gift to us as a family, or is
No, this one's
Oh,
me.
is this okay? This is homemade, you said?
Oh, no, not homemade. But
Okay. What that says Eld on it, so I think this is Elden Ring something. It says arm.
1 second, chat. We'll move this in a second.
What
you might want to put just Brandon full screen.
did we? Did they send us this?
Nope.
No, you guys got this for me.
Yep.
You bought me an arm.
I bought
You bought the millennial arm. Oh man.
I'm speechless. I've been given an arm. That's awesome.
You can use it as a back scratcher.
Yeah,
Whatever
yeah.
you need.
Is this is what I get? I see. It's on this side.
I'll move this out of the way real quick.
This is what I get for beating her. Is you get to have her arm. This is number 330. We can put up our replica.
I think
thing.
3,300.
3,300. Not 330. 3,300.
Yes, look out. He's armed.
Yes.
And I think those are Velcro or something. I'm very excited to see this.
All right, Donald, I'm going to give this to you and let
Sounds
you
good.
open it and bring the arm over to us because doing this
It's pretty
on the
big.
table,
Yeah.
this will work much better.
Will you move that mic back to you?
Yep.
Cool.
There we are.
I want to point out, Brandon, I brought this up to you, I think, 8 months ago when I found this, and you were like, you know, I don't know where we'd put this arm. Adam, thank you for getting this.
It looks like you can fit it on a wall.
Yes.
They've got a wall hanging, fitting, so we can put her arm. The Blade of Mikola can be there taunting us.
Are you going to say the line?
I am Melania Blade of Mikola. All right? Yeah. And I've never known defeat. Is that what what she says? So I will admit to you guys, I didn't go through and try to beat her at rune level 1. When I did my rune level 1 run, I did beat the Elden Beast and things at rune number 1. I had already beaten her at level 70 with no hit, and so I figured that counted. During my other run.
It would have been more.
It just would have been going and learning Waterfowl Dance again so that I could beat her again at one hit with no hit. And I'm just like, you know what? I've done it. I did that in my previous run. And that was the only part that was annoying to me in the entire first run. And I would say it was the only part that was annoying to me in the entire, like, it was more annoying than any of the other fights. Like, rune level 1 was a cakewalk compared to beating her the first time. And maybe beating her the first time leveled me up enough that I could just handle everything else at rune level 1, because you essentially have to beat her at rune level 1 because you have to, you kind of have to no-hit the level I was doing it, but there you are.
This to you. It's a little fragile. It's 2 pieces.
Okay.
Hold it, like right there.
Hold it right there.
Yeah.
And there we are. It is our arm.
Oh, that looks great.
It's longer than I expected.
Yeah.
It to
It's
be.
got a
And
little
it's
bit of weight.
sturdier,
Yeah.
and it's very well made. That's
She's
really cool.
almost doing finger guns.
Sometimes you get these props and you're like, wow, these are of not the best workmanship. This one is. This is incredible workmanship. So they did a good job.
I suspect I can see this behind you.
All right, so that's a cool gift.
I was hoping you'd like it.
Do you see what Jordo gave me?
I don't. Oh,
This is you can't see it. It's official Final Fantasy VII Chocobo Caretaker shirt.
Yes.
But they don't have anything on the front of this one. It's just on the back. So that's
Oh, yeah, let me steal that from you.
so
how much does that weigh?
It's
yeah, it's hefty.
Okay.
like 10
Yeah.
pounds.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I got, I know, chat, you guys love my love affair with my folding phone. This is something I don't stop talking about. I got the new one. Bam! The new Z Fold 7. My old one is the Z Fold 2. It worked for 5 years, which is good for phone life. In fact, I could have done another year on it, probably. But man, this one is like half the size. They're actually the size of real phones now, so you guys can actually buy them. All these people who complain that they were too thick, you should buy Z Folds because then they'll keep making them.
I don't know the manufacturer, but I saw one that's a trifold.
Yeah.
It goes to like a 10-inch.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I don't know if I need that.
That's
like
big.
Gaming on this is just the right size, and it's really nice to be able to game on it. So
Like even when you close it, it sounds
it has
sturdy.
Yeah,
you know?
if it's anything like this one, like I only developed any creases this last year. So in year number 5, I started to develop the little creases. But even when it's on, you can't even see them. That's So, and it's even got a little bit of a bigger screen. It feels like a real phone, not a tablet masquerading as a phone. So. There you are. I'm still in love with my phone, and Emily got me that for my birthday. And yeah, stream sponsored by Samsung. Not really, because they're going to hate this. The bloatware on these things, oh my goodness. Like so much bloatware. It takes like 2 hours to find all the things that they've put on that you have to take off.
I mean, how else are they going to track everything you're doing and knowing what you're doing? Yeah.
So what exactly the fifth oath do to Raiden's abilities? Raffo.
Oh.
Though one of the things you should expect is the amount of Stormlight needed as the bond attunes becomes less and less to perform certain acts, and that allows you to accomplish things by itself that are pretty cool. Like a little teaser, I think Kaladin could reach the moons. They're pretty close orbit, but he could reach the moons by now just with Stormlight he could carry pretty easily.
Really?
Yeah.
That'd be
Dang.
awesome.
Yeah. So, we don't have Stormlight anymore. That is correct. If he had Stormlight, he could. Unfortunately, there is no Stormlight. So, when are you playing Expedition 33? Here's the thing. When I sit down to game, it's usually after a long day of writing, and my brain dead. And so I like to have games where I am not going to have my heart ripped out and stomped on. It's sometimes I have to ration playing those games. And I have a feeling that Expedition 33 is a get your heart ripped out and stomped on type game, just from reading the premise of it. And so I have to find the right time to play Expedition 33.
I know almost nothing about it, other than
I know the one paragraph, like a premise, why it's called Expedition 33, which is an awesome premise. It's really cool. So I might have to play Baldur's Gate or Cyberpunk first, neither of which I've gotten to.
Cyberpunk.
They
I haven't played what is
Phantom
it?
Liberty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Played that one yet.
So, but they both feel like ones that might be a little less heart rippy outy. I bet there's some heart rippy outy in both, but I feel like that. I just get the feeling. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Stormlight Smash from Reddit says, is Renarin's living blade an alloy of 3 god metals because Gliss is an enlightened sprin?
We're gonna raffle that. We'll get into what's going on with that. But that is a pretty valid theory. Yes.
Joffwa says, are the shades on Threnody made of negative investiture?
Are the shades on Threnody made of negative investiture? So the shades are not, but the evil is. Right. So shades are a different thing, and they are not what would be considered negative investiture. Yeah. Potential Cosmere video games, Sadie. So here. While I would love to tell a new story, I think for marketability and for people wanting to play the game, I think if we make a Mistborn game, my goal would be to make the story of Book 1 expanded as a game. Basically that. I imagine it is a single-player, story-driven RPG that I don't know what you guys think of that, but that's what I think. The only other real option is between books 1 and 2. I feel. But I think that just not, this is the spoiler stream, so you can say, not being able to play as Kelsier, right, as an alternate character, like not being able to play as Vin, learning how to use allomancy. Like, I think these are just, I think it is a better idea to just do there. And there's some really good games that have done this, right? Like there's several of the Lord of the Rings games. Like the ones they made up a new story were actually pretty awesome. The Shadow of Mordor. But like the Lord of the Rings game, I remember the one for Two Towers being just really good. Playing through the game, and I just think that's the right move. Particularly, a lot of people who are gamers may have heard of Mistborn and not played. Some of you are saying, you'd rather a brand new story and time period. Yeah, I get it. That's what my first try was. That was Mistborn Birthright. When I first tried a video game 15 years ago, and it was going to be during the Final Empire era, and kind of the origin of Mistborn and Mistcloaks and things like that. The more I think about it, that would be a really great game to make after we have made a game of book one, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Speaking of games, and you mentioned Lord of the Rings, I think.
Wait, I'm going to cut you off. Someone says I hate 2D platformers. I do. I love 2D platformers. But I know where you're getting this. I didn't love Hollow Knight because I kept wanting to use the control scheme of Elden Ring and Dark Souls. It wasn't the game. It wasn't it being 2D. Like Symphony of the Night's one of the best games ever, and I love Braid. I love these unique 2D side scrollers. It was the control scheme, not being able to unlearn my dodge mechanics and things because it felt so Elden Ring-like that I played it too soon after one of those, and it just made it a frustrating experience because I didn't dodge things I knew I should have. My brain knew I should have because I had the same problem with Salt and Sanctuary, right? The idea that if I've played a style of this game so much and I've got muscle memory, it's the problem of like going from Halo to a different FPS. You got to play something else in between, and I didn't, and that's what stopped me. Not anything to do with the actual game, which had fantastic world building and really cool mechanics. So.
You mentioned the Lord of the Rings games.
Yes.
And I think it's Mordor that has the Nemesis system.
Yes, Shadow of Mordor.
Really, I think it's held in limbo.
Yep.
It is currently under copyright.
Yes.
It cannot be used.
Is there a game mechanic like that system that you think would be a good match for something like Mistborn? I don't know if you've gotten that granular.
Yeah, so here's with this, I really love the early days of the kind of quote-unquote open world RPG that was like the not fully open world, like what became the Ubisoft model. So Infamous is the game series that when I was playing Infamous, I'm like, I would want to make a Mistborn game like this. Assassin's Creed, Infamous, Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man games. I worry those have turned into collectathons and have stopped working as well. I don't like meaningless collectathons. I do like collectathons. Don't get me wrong. I like collecting stuff. But I feel like they maybe went too far, and I don't like QuickTime events. And those became like, I think it might be the Uncharted influence, mashing these things together. I feel like Ubisoft has also kind of run this into the ground. So the question is, what could we do new with that sort of system, or do we have to do something else completely different? Do we have to go to more of I don't know, it feels like that would fit so well because you really don't want to have anything more than the one city, but you want to have a really nice version of the city, like in the Spider-Man games. Who made those?
That would be Insomniac.
Yeah, Insomniac's Spider-Man games, which are really good, even playing as Mary Jane wasn't as fun, but are really good games. So there we are.
I'm curious, just to follow up on that. Are you thinking more like Arkham Knight, or I should really say like Arkham Asylum from Rocksteady, or similar-ish?
Well, yes, except remember one of my big holes in
Yes.
my love of video games is I do not like stealth.
Yes.
I don't have as much fun with most stealth mechanics.
Yep.
And so, while I played through the first two of the Arkham games and really liked them, there was just a bit too much stealthing for me.
Gotcha.
So that's why I've never played the Metal Gear games.
There was an interesting question in the chat. Someone was asking the difference between negative investiture and anti-investiture.
Yeah. Let's let the Arcanist. So what we're calling negative investiture is almost all exclusively a warping of the death of ambition. Anti-investiture is a very, very similar thing, but it is man-made.
Okay.
Right? And they have similar functions, but the negative investiture is mostly self-aware in a very weird way, in a and the negative investiture built, or the anti-investiture built by Yasna things, it is functionally the same, but not Yasna, Navani, is functionally the same, but not self-aware, not necessarily from ambition. And that's the distinction in my mind right now, but we'll let the Arcanist drill down on me. There's Argent flipping out. Yeah. He might have a different definition for it, and he may be the team of Arcanists might convince me that I should use a different definition. So
For me, I just know we've reached smile and nod phase.
smile and nod. Could humans and dragons have mixed species offspring? In fact, it is dragons in the Cosmere. The Yolan dragons only reproduce in human form.
Oh.
So they can reproduce other dragons in human form. Like, they don't consider themselves, like, when they're in human forms, they're not masquerading as humans. They are like amphibians, except they can transfer back and forth.
Gotcha.
That is one of their forms. And they are anatomically human and can have children with humans. So the children who are born are dragons.
Okay.
Yep. So.
Cara Dune says, at what point does a listener/human hybrid lose forms? If someone is one half listener, do they have forms?
We'll raffle on that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely raffle on that. It's an excellent question, but I don't want to canonize anything right now, even though what I say here is not 100% canon. Keep that in mind. So yeah.
Another from the Reddit thread, can anti-breaths be created? If so, what would happen to a drab who receives an anti-breath? Would they return to a quote-unquote normal state?
Wow. Anti-breaths could be created. Anti-breaths touching real investiture would have explosive ramifications. I don't think you would get what you want out of that. But good question. Let's take some from the chat for a little while. Let's see. Can we expect to be barbecue? Yeah, you could expect to see barbecue. In fact, there are things that you would eat there right now that you might consider barbecue-like. If whimsy and invention were held by the same vessel, what would the name be? There would be dozens of options. I'll let you theorize on what they could be. Can I?
We can pause this as well.
Yeah,
I need the scroller.
Yeah, let me grab you one.
So because I need to be able to pause.
Yeah, the chat's moving pretty
Chat's
fast.
moving pretty fast, and so I just need to. All right. This isn't doing anything.
Oh, duh, sorry. It is attached to my computer.
Is Nightblood made of anti-investiture? Raffo. If someone has a hemalurgic spike granting an allomantic power, you can probably just do it like
I can
that
do it
yourself.
for you.
While burning Lerasium, would that spike block Lerasium from being specific? Okay, someone has a hemalurgic spike granting. No, this isn't Shadow Bowser King how I imagine it work. If someone has a hemalurgic spike granting a power and they took while burning Lerasium, they would still attach that power to their soul, and removing the spike would not remove. They would only remove the part that the hemalurgy had given. What was the scene that was 20 years in the making? There were a lot of them in that book. And I'm trying to remember which tweet I was talking about
We've had many discussions.
when it was 20 years in the making, and I can't remember what I was writing when I did that. the things that I knew were the final confrontation. Though I did, as you guys all know, age up Gavinor, so that it wasn't just a baby. The only real choices for me were Gavinor and a random child that Dalinar didn't know, which actually, in some ways, would be more appropriate and things like that. But Teravantian likes to hit people where it will hurt. So
he chose well.
Yeah. For those who wanted it to be Adolin, it could have been Adolin. That's an option. I never seriously considered. Well, I did consider it, but it was never any part of the outlines. It could have been Adolin. I worried about what that would do for the things I'm planning for a second half now that I have it. But that's a valid choice for those who would have thought it could be Adolin. I think you had a good thought. It would fit the prophecies, and it would match. Was Shauna being at Shallan's wedding always part of the plan? Was that why you skipped over an Oathbringer? That isn't why I skipped over an Oathbringer, though it was always part of the plan. I skipped over an Oathbringer because I worried I was doing too many scenes that felt similar, and I wanted to save that scene for later when it would have more impact. It felt like too big. It's so hard. This is like a vibes thing. When I'm writing it, and I'm like, I feel like this scene to have the emotional weight I want it to won't fit here in the pacing. So let's save it and put it in a different place. Is Hoyt a Ghostblood? No. It doesn't work.
No, you went too far. Sorry.
Oh.
Two monitors.
Yep, two
I'm not used to
too far, just go to the right.
Not used to two monitors.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can win that argument. Hoyt is not a Ghostblood. Is Dalinar really dead? Yes, Dalinar is really dead. I'm sorry.
Boo.
Yeah.
It's okay. He was just my favorite.
Dalinar is really dead. So Dalinar is dead like Vin and Elend are dead, not like Kelsier was dead.
Oh, so like dead. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Dead.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So yeah. Now it depends on what you think of life after death. So yeah. Do you have plans for stories that expand the Ariali? Yes, I do. Will I get to them? I don't know. Who are the planets in the Cosmere named after? Cosmere planets mostly are named after a lot of different things. A lot of them are named by people who were mapping the Cosmere and were able to get some sort of knowledge of them. Like Roshar is named that because that's what it's called by the people who live there. And same with Scadrial got its name partially in a slightly different way. But again, it's involved the first contact and what do we call this? A lot of places call their planet in their language just the planet. Like Earth just means round. And so you can imagine that a lot of these words are similar things like that from a dominant culture on the planet. Do shades need a form of connection to speak different languages? Yes, but it is pretty easy for them to do. Was autonomy's intent changed after fighting Dominion? Is there any Dominion bit to autonomy? Autonomy always had a bit of the vessel always had a bit of a Dominion-ish feel, and so yes, but it's not from the fight specifically. IRL Towers game. People have asked for this. I'm not convinced that I can make it happen, but it's possible. How many times did Rashik fall in love? Raffo.
Darn.
Did the Lord really figure out how to make Conjurer himself, or did you get the idea from something that already existed on Scadrial? There was already existent sort of things on Scadrial that I would say gave him the idea. What point in the history did the Areli arrive? On Roshar. We'll keep that as a Raffo. The Lord Ruler has very strong Allomancy. Does he achieve this by compounding ferrochemical Nigrosil? I'm going to raffle this like you're going to see me do with a lot of Nigrosil questions. The Lord Ruler's Allomancy was not just due to a bead of Lerasium. How about that? Do dead Shardblades look different from living ones? You can figure it out pretty easily. Dead Shardblades were mostly frozen in a showy form. Certainly that's part of it, but do they look different? Not to the casual observer. How about that? But there are distinctions you can figure out. Thoughts on the Cosmere being an animated series like Critical Role is doing? I mean, Critical Role and Arcane are doing a lot of great work in making animation more viable as a medium for serious storytelling aimed at adults. I don't know if we're there yet. And now the only reason I know that is, I can't get the budgets for it. I can get the budgets for live action. I cannot get the budgets for animation. Now, Critical Role, they are kickstarting theirs. Am I right?
They're kickstarting it and have multiple sponsors.
But they also have like people behind the scenes. Yeah. I think the fact that they get voice actors built in and the voice actors are a selling point makes those investors a lot less scared. And of course, Arcane, League of Legends just footed a bunch of the bill.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I can't get those budgets. So if you know people at studios who think that they could give me the budgets to make something of the quality of the two shows you mentioned, then it is absolutely something that I would seriously consider. But
reference, talent is often 10 to 20% of budget.
Yeah.
Look at people's contracts. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, well, and beyond that, it's not just the talent. The talent is already signed, and the best talent they could possibly get. Right?
Exactly.
Because they are the creators.
The selling point.
And that selling point makes, I would say, if I were an investor and I were looking at Mistborn or that, I would instantly pick that instead.
Oh, yeah.
Just because the voice actors are already there. Yeah. And they're...
Not using them would be a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, is it something I consider? Yes. But there's my thoughts. With Scandrins expanding into the Cosmere, will we see interactions between Hemalurgy and AVR? Yes. Yeah, you could see interactions between Hemalurgy and the AVR. It would be terrible. It would be terrible, but you could definitely see interactions. Is it specifically bound to tied to human souls? No.
I can see the fan art already.
Yeah. How did Ishar find the well of control? Raffo, call Henry. Henry's busy. He's making cool Warhammer stuff. Henry has a lot on his plate right now. Did the original Zellion have significant ties to the Shard of Invention? Raffo. How did the fuse get lifelight from Lift? How did the fuse get the lifelight from Lift? I'm not sure what you're 100% referencing on there. Like, how did they get it out of her? Because you can just use the same things that would get Stormlight. Everything else out would work. How's Jello? Jello's doing fine. He lives with his trainers most of the time, and they have other large birds. He is way happier with other large birds. So I don't see him as much as I would like, but he is super happy. And so, macaws are a little harder in that regard. Than like lovebirds. I just would have bought another lovebird if I would have gotten a bird that was as lonely as Jello seemed. Even though he was right in the main room with all of us, he was just lonely. You can buy another lovebird, but you can't buy another macaw. I couldn't spend the time with two macaws that they would need, and so Jello is great, but he lives most of the time with the trainer.
Comment. I'm going to be right back. I have to go buy a Powerball.
Oh,
to
okay.
fund your animation, I'm assuming is what.
Yeah. Once you own your animation studio, come talk to us. I know Donald would love to head an animation studio. You have a built-in, studio exec right here.
That's exactly right.
Right.
I've been saying this for years.
Is L related to Zellion? The letters L, E-L, are related to that, and they are related to Adonalcium. Yeah. There's just some similar linguistic things in there. When will Cosmere be in Fortnite again? Donald.
No comments.
Yeah.
Raffo.
Kind of. Yeah, well, it's a Raffo in that Papa Fortnite doesn't work at Fortnite anymore, and so Donald's father doesn't work there anymore. He has moved on to doing other things, and though we all still have very good contacts, and we love the people over at Epic Games. And Tim Sweeney has done me multiple solids in my life, so I understand that people like to complain about Tim Sweeney. He does have a different take on AI art than perhaps I have, but he's done me some solids, so he's all right in my book. Aona and Skay, ever a couple? Well, Raffo. How likely will see Retribution make his own heralds? Raffo. How likely, though? I'd say that there is a chance of this. For sure, there's a percentage chance. How likely is it? Will Raffo. Raoul Loram was initially planned setting for book 4. Which plot lines was Raoul Loram? So the invasion of Urithiru was going to be an invasion of Raoul Loram, and Kaladin there behind the scenes working, and Navani and Raboniel was all happening there. I just didn't feel right with how much I had to do with the world building in that one. And that was like my big, I'm doing a whole bunch of science world building that I didn't want to throw an entire new setting at you as well. So I kept it at Urithiru. Is the location of Silverlight significantly linked to the disappearance of reason? I wouldn't say so, but who knows? I would not say so. Which language in the Cosmere is closest to the English language? No idea. Not a linguist. So they're all very different. You said about 4 years ago. Oh, I missed.
I might have seen it.
Let's see. This doesn't actually stop it.
Fast.
Well, no, I didn't scroll. It just I touched it and it just moved.
Oh, right. Yeah.
What's that? Said 4 years ago that only one vessel is a dragon. Yeah, I think I was just wrong. I know at least. Yeah, I know of at least. There are 2 dragon vessels. There are not more. So I think I was just. I don't know what I was doing. Yeah, there's 2 dragon vessels. So that's just a Brandon brain fart.
Not sure if you wanted to say the whole question because they don't know where you're.
Yes, the same. So.
Sorry.
Metalantorius is still Valor's vessel. Okay. Yeah. Do we get a book about the pancake-shaped people that only speak in flatulence? Wrong book series, my friend. No, wrong. No, you will not get about the pancake-shaped people that only speak in flatulence. But you can. Yeah. We'll leave it to you whether Hoyd was joking or not about that. With the insane amount of writing that you do you have any time to read for fun? Yeah, so not as much as I think a lot of other authors do, but I did read Fonda Lee's series, and I did read Dungeon Crawler Carl, and I did read all of my student submissions for classes, and those are all together pretty sizable chunk of reading.
And an ongoing thing as well.
Yeah, and 2 of the books of the Lord of the Rings this year. So, and I started a bunch of others. I got like 10% into a bunch of unpublished books to look at what I would blurb. Basically, for me is there's only 2 modes. Either I finish it and I give it an enthusiastic blurb, or I don't ever mention what it is that I read and put aside, unless it's like some major author that my voice won't cause any problems to, right? Like I don't make I don't feel bad saying, hey, I put down Game of Thrones after the first book because the brutality to Daenerys was too much for me. That's in part because I acknowledge that they are brilliantly written, and I've read a lot of George's other work, and. I listed him as the best writer of currently alive in sci-fi fantasy. I don't mind mentioning things like that, but if I put aside a new author's book, I'm not a reviewer. You don't come to me for reviews. There's lots of great booktubers and book talkers that will review books honestly for you. My job is if I like something, I'm going to tell you I like it. If I don't like something, I'm just going to stay quiet. So. Can I get a signed copy of Way of Kings? How do I get that? Well, once these are all signed, we will print them and we'll have them on the store. They don't last very long. I'm sorry, but Donald, can I sign one of these for that person? Could you figure out how to get them a copy?
Yes. What is the comment?
The comment is Rosetta Garden J.A.O.
I'll write it in the top of the.
Can I get a sign?
Yeah.
I'm just going to sign one for you, and we'll just send you this. I can't do that for anyone else. Otherwise, everyone will ask it. So we'll just get your address, and we'll send that to you wherever you are.
And Mods, if you'll just copy that down, that'd be great.
I have it.
And then you can just slip it into your. I mean, it's really a weird thing to have. But if you want one of the actual print books, they'll probably be out late next year. Would be my guess. Usually, I finish signing like 10,000 of these. They put the order in. It takes them like 6-7 months, and then we get them in. Did Spirit Web Entertainment cause Nicaro to be heavily invested? Would leave a cognitive shadow upon death. Nicaro probably is invested enough to leave a cognitive shadow, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to really look at it. Hey, these got some residual effects of a bunch of the stuff he went through. There might be enough clinging to him. Let's see. Does Sibling think that Night left the planet? Oh man, the continent, the system. Let's raffo that for now. Would Dalinar and Kelsier get along? No, I don't think they would. Young Dalinar? Yes. Adult Dalinar? Probably not. Kelsier is a hard person to get along with unless you buy into him being in charge.
Yeah,
right?
Dalinar is
not going to do that.
The wrong kind of person for Kelsier to like in general.
Yeah, if you buy into getting if you think Kelsier does a good job being in charge, he's going to get along with you, and he can get along with a lot of people. He's a sweet talker, right?
And I'm saying it just from like the noble side of things.
Yeah, the noble side of things, he definitely would not like.
So before you take your next question, I've been instructed to give you one more gift.
Oh, okay.
So let me pull this over. Let me get on Adam's side.
And that marks hour one. We'll probably go to 8:15 because we started late, if that's okay.
I'm going to bump that mic barely. I'm just going to push this over to you.
Are these peanuts?
You can open that up. You see what you got.
Hey, look what I got. I got Human the Koloss turning 50. I assume this is from Sean because this looks an awful lot like his Human the Koloss. Yeah, right there.
There you go, everyone. Perfect. And that is signed by the majority of everyone here at Dragonsteel. This is the Peanut Gallery gift.
The Peanut Gallery gift is peanuts.
Maybe. What do you mean?
I saw them in there.
All right.
Hey, that's so nice. I have like a real company that can make me a card. Why are you buying? You didn't buy these, did you?
So there's a story.
You should not be buying gifts for your boss.
Hold on. Also, do you want, I can tell the story if you'd like, Adam.
Money should flow from boss to employee.
Yes. So we were told that Brandon really likes these peanuts from Texas Roadhouse.
I do like the Texas Roadhouse peanuts a lot.
If you want to pull out one of those for us.
Okay.
He reached out, and we'll give credit where it's due. Becky reached out to one of our local Texas Roadhouses, and they were some of your biggest fans. They stopped us and said, we're not only going to give you 20, we're going to just give you an entire case. Take it.
Well, that's nice.
Thank you, Texas Roadhouse, for giving us a case of these peanuts. You guys are the best.
I'm glad I didn't trash their steaks on our steak thing. I'm glad I gave them a high rank.
But now you only have
that would have been awkward.
2 of these.
Yep.
I did trash their rolls.
You did, which
but
is a travesty.
Most people love their rolls. I just don't like sweet
Because they're made
sweet
of
rolls.
cake.
Yeah.
They're the best.
But they have good steaks and good burgers. And they have fantastic peanuts. Well, there we are. Thank you. And I'm glad you got them for free.
Yes.
That's
all
a perfect
of us want
gift.
to say thank you as employees. We all appreciate you, Brandon.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Yeah. And thank you, Adam. It's okay if you buy me gifts. You're an executive.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Though I have your family for a gift this year.
Ooh.
And you have my family. And so Jane bought us candy that's been very tasty. Oh, thanks, Donald.
Yeah, of course.
So I have enjoyed having the candy. Jane gave us a Sugar Fina. Is that the name of it? Advent calendar. So you open it up and there's a little expensive hoity-toity candy in it every day. 4 pieces.
And they mostly do like gummies, right?
They mostly do gummies and like little chews of some of variety sorts. Some of them have been like not a gummy, but more like a really fancy, like chocolatey, like a really fancy Whopper. Yeah, okay. Let's do some more. Let's read this one, and then we'll do some more from the Reddit thread.
Sounds good.
Between I Hate Dragons and its extended version, the Cosmere Princess reading at FanX, you seem to want to reuse the idea of magical knacks. Will they make a return to the Cosmere? So the Cosmere Princess reading at FanX was I Hate Dragons, same world. And so, will they make a return to the Cosmere? If I can find a way to make them not silly. Like, they can be a little funny, but they just, they can't be too far. And that story was too far. Yeah. All right, let's do some more questions from there, and then we'll let this start scrolling naturally. And then
we can rotate.
Can I ask an important question? Okay, Joker Blade, ask your important question. I'm gonna watch for it. Yeah, Donald will watch for it.
Yep.
Okay.
Just put it in the top of the document.
Okay.
Very Nice Name 16 says, a while ago you told us that all investiture in the Cosmere was assigned to a shard at the Shattering,
Yes.
and that investiture purified of shardic alignment was impossible. Since then, we've seen Dawn Shards, Aethers, the old magic gods on Roshar, Windstone Knight, and purified Door. Are these things all still aligned to shards? Have you changed how this works?
I've tweaked it a little bit. I still imagine it's all aligned to a shard, but it's more in its history. And I've begun letting it be wiped a little bit more and things like that. I do think that, for instance, the old gods were shardic aligned when it happened. They kind of predate the Shattering, but kind of not. If you read Wind and Truth, when you read it, you can kind of figure that out. I'm letting it be wiped of intent, and for all intents and purposes, acting like it is completely wiped. But that's not really 100% possible. Like, all investiture came from Adonalsium. Asterix, the Aethers claim that they didn't, right? And therefore, all investors still came from Adonalsium, even if you completely, you wipe away. If you file off the serial numbers of something, it's still the thing. You just don't recognize it. So that's where I am right now on this. So it's a good question. I could change on this. This is one of those ones that I could change on as things go along, because again, the Aethers claim they are not derived from Adonalsium. So
GK Pseudo says, can a pregnant dragon change forms? Does this involve some spiritual realm shenanigans for the fetus?
Yeah, so that is one of the first questions I thought of. They try not to, but they can. And the child will change form as well.
That's weird.
That's weird. But
it's fun.
Right now I have that when they're in dragon form, like, they do not have sexual organs. They still have some anatomy that would care for an infant. This is a thing I could change. You could read later on, I just put a lock on, that a pregnant dragon just is locked into their human form until they give birth. But that's why I have it right now. But in dragon form, they don't have sexual organs.
Is this like the you can't fly after 6 months being pregnant kind of thing?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, the Cosmere version. So, but we still haven't had a lot of dragon protagonists and things like that, and so these things tweak as I write more characters.
Okay. Lacrosse Demon says, now that Odium is retribution, does he have access to the Surge of Adhesion? will we see a 10th brand diffused? 10th made?
He does. And yes, you could see that. So, yeah.
And the final question is, can Yellignar finally grant its host adhesion?
Yes, could. Yeah.
Ooh.
Windrunner Savant says, why didn't Nightblood cause an explosion or chip the honor blades while Zeth was fighting the honor bearers?
Why didn't he cause an explosion or chip? So let's see if I can talk around or if I just have to raffo this.
Okay.
Part of this is awareness on Ishar's part of what happened. Part of this has to do with the same mechanics of why some of the first attempts Raoden made with Aeondor were a little more explosive, reactive than anticipated. And there's some other things happening behind the scenes.
Huh.
So,
Just want to see the chat. AAKS says, if Hoyd were a blood maker, could he store health, or would that count as hurting himself?
sorry, go ahead. I was just reading the chat. And
you want that one again?
No,
Okay.
you have to give me that one.
go to
I'm
the
just
next
saying the chat, there's some smart people in chat.
one. Okay.
There's some smart people in chat. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
What?
No, that's all I'm going to say. Ask me that question again.
Okay. If Hoyd were a blood maker, could he store health, or would that count as hurting himself?
Could he store health? Would that count as hurting himself? I think he could psychologically his way around it. It'd probably fail the first few times. Whether he could psychologically convince himself that it was largely for preservation purposes, I think he probably could. So
There was a commenter that is my spirit animal. Who said, I know less now than before the answer. That's something I
yeah.
Another one from Joffwa. Starling said Ed has Vaxillian heritage, but there's also a call out of quote unquote true Vaxillians.
Yes.
Does Ed have quote unquote true Vaxillian heritage?
Yes. Yes. He's not full. He's mostly human.
And Seth Kran says, you've stated before that you had a backup plan in case you decided to not have Taravangian take up Odium.
Yes.
In this world, Reyes was pretty against picking up another shard. What might have been different about the finale of Book 5 in this alternate future? That's a very hypothetical question.
This is a very hypothetical question. So if he hadn't taken it up, I would have left Reyes in charge, and Reyes would have tried to splinter honor and cultivation, and we would have continued on the whole splintering route rather than him taking it up. Again, this is one of those ones that once I got to the actual book, I knew was just not very likely, right? Because the main choice had always been Taravangian. I'd given myself this backup, and I just really like Taravangian as he makes a better villain for the entirety of the Stormlight Archive and for the entirety of the Cosmere than Reyes. And this is partially just because I haven't written Dragonsteel yet, right? If I had started with Dragonsteel, remember when I was working on these outlines, I was intending Lyre of Partenel to come out before Stormlight, right? This was before Wheel of Time hit me. And you would have read a trilogy about Hoyd, and you would know all of the shards of Adol Nalsion's vessels. And Reyes then being a major villain, it works so much better. I didn't get that done, and I'm not likely to do that for a while. I needed to do Stormlight Archive. And so because of that, when I sat down to write book one, I'm like, no, Taravangian is the better villain. And he had been since Dragonsteel Prime. I can't remember what I called him in Dragonsteel Prime. Not Dragonsteel Prime, Way of Kings Prime. But Yeah, just one of those ones that when you're writing, it just became more and more likely it was going to be him as I wrote the books. And then, yes, when I finally got to Rhythm of War, I knew it was the right answer. So.
And I have the question from Joker, if you want that one.
Yeah, just a minute.
Yep.
What happened to the Lyre of Partinel sample chapters? We should find a way to get those back up. There's no reason to not. It's not very canon anymore. Lyre of Partinel did not turn out very good. Here's the problem with Lyre of Partinel. It just isn't a good book. Way of King's Prime was a good book that didn't do everything I wanted to, and I was sure I could get it better. Lyre of Partinel doesn't work. It does introduce the Aethers. It was going to be nice to have the Aethers in the Cosmere that much earlier. But, there's an alternate timeline where instead of working on Rhythmatist and then Wheel of Time, I fix Lyre of Partinel, and the thing that follows Warbreaker is the Shattering of Adenalcium. So that's interesting. All right. Another question from you, and then we'll take a few more from chat.
This one is from the chat. This is the Joker question.
Yes.
Which shard that we haven't seen yet are you most excited to write and for us to read, and why?
Valor, probably. Valor's history with Hoyd is fun. And so, writing an almost all-powerful shard of Adenalcium who is also Hoyd's ex-girlfriend.
Wait, what?
Is a lot of fun. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, there you are.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, little spoiler for Dragonsteel, but there you are. Hoyd's not good at relationships. He's really, really not good at relationships.
You'd think he'd have learned something.
Yeah. I mean, you would think. Mm-hmm. You would think. He's just not very good with relationships. Would you want to date him?
Yes.
Oh, yeah? So.
It would never be boring.
Poor Hoyd. Yeah. Don't spread that one to people who haven't read yet. You will get something with, but yes, there's a good reason that Valor does not want Hoyd to find her. Let's just say, and he doesn't know where she is. So,
oh my God.
How many kids does Hoyd have? He only has 2, the twins. Yep. All right. Can we have a romantasy book, Hoyd and his wife? Romantasies don't deal well with tragedy, in my experience. I don't know if that would work terribly well. He said writing about Hoyd's ex-girl is a lot of fun, not would be. Yeah, okay. It is a lot of fun because Yasna is also an ex. And I've already written about her. She was only an ex briefly by the end of Stormlight 5, but yeah. Writing about Hoyd being annoyed is a lot of fun. You shouldn't expect a Hoyd and Valor story anytime soon. Sorry. What's the significance of the name Adenalcium? Does it have anything with the Hebrew word Adonai? Yes, in the same way. So I take a lot of my translation work, a lot of my naming, I borrow some things that Tolkien said. And I'm sorry if you've heard me talk about this a lot. When I am coming up with a name, I will use often some Earth analogs that I'm trying to search for something that has a similar analog in the Cosmere. So, for instance, when you get hemalurgy and feruchemy, we are using, and things like that, we're using Latin and Greek. Why? Because the words they're using in their world are old, dead languages that have been adopted as, Greek isn't a dead language, but you know what I mean. Ancient Greek is. Have been adopted in the same way on Scadrial as Latin and Greek have for talk about scientific things, right? Adenalcium's name is to evoke this sense of they have a word that is similar to the word Adonai in Hebrew, and the name is supposed to remind you of that, Not that Hebrew exists in the Cosmere, but a language like Hebrew exists in the Cosmere, and the name is derived from that. So there you are. If book 14, oh, wow, power scaling. If book 14...
book 14 ran fighting Toln.
Fighting Toln. Usually these are easy. I think Rand probably still wins. I think in the world of, I think that in general, the weaves of the Wheel of Time are more powerful than the Cosmere magics as a whole.
Bellfire?
Right? Yeah.
I mean...
I think they are, it's just a step up in power level, and Rand is several steps beyond that by book 14. I think Rand has the edge on Toln, but I mean, Toln is the only non-deific thing that could give him a run for his money, and Toln's got going for him that if you kill Toln, Toln can come back. And so there is that as well. Toln might have inevitability because of that. And Toln can move at a speed that Rand might not be able to track. But Rand can teleport, and that's a really big deal, right? So I'm gonna give this one to Rand by a narrow margin, but please confirm sticky ones. I do not know what you mean. I'm sorry.
The 10th response to a question from talking about the 10th, one of the forms. We were talking about it earlier. Geez, I'm
okay.
Brain fart right now, so never mind.
Okay.
I'm sure someone will.
We were talking about it on the stream here.
Yes.
You're talking about the fused?
The fused, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
sticky one. I get what you're calling it.
That's why I was
okay.
I'm going to confirm.
Those ones of stickiness. I'm not going to confirm those ones of stickiness. That's definitely that's funny. By the end of the main Cosmere novels, will we have known why Vasher was brought back by Endamment? I intend you to, but I can't promise it. Talk about Tolkien all you want, birthday Brandon. Well, thank you. I like talking about Tolkien. He's really good. He's a really good writer.
Well, you say that. I feel like it's a little too early to tell.
Yeah, I know. I really, one of the things I like about Tolkien is, and we talked about this a little on a podcast episode coming up, is he can be profound without being flowery. Mm-hmm. And that's a really difficult skill. Like when people copy Tolkien, they copy him and they make it florid. And he's really not. He uses a really good word now and then. Mm-hmm. But I was reading, and Gandalf also says, run for it at one point, right? Like it's not stiff. It feels a little more formal, but it doesn't feel stiff. The dialogue doesn't feel stiff. It feels naturalistic, yet somehow elevated at the same time. And that's what's really cool. And he doesn't shy away from using things like "run for it." He doesn't care if people be like, "Why is Gandalf saying run for it? Is that too modern?" No, Tolkien doesn't care. It's what he would say. But it also carries this weight to it that I really like. He's very, very good at that. Not so, I really appreciate some of the changes Peter Jackson made to the action scenes to make them more cinematic. But yeah. Anyway, Tolkien, great. I know, really, really hot take there. Tolkien and Dune are fantastic books. Wow, Brandon. Can we have the papercraft covers and hardcraft plans for many more papercraft covers in the future? We have a one for Warbreaker in our back pocket in case we couldn't get the rights to Emperor's Soul to work, because Emperor's Soul is actually the paperback rights of that are with Tachyon, while the other two are with Tor. And so we just went ahead because we were doing the negotiations while we were getting them. So we've got one in our back pocket. one of the things we could try a poll on this. We could release those paperback covers as new dust jackets to cover your old hardcovers, if people wanted to. That's a thing we've talked about. So if people really like those, we could do something like that. I think that they would not want them unless there were 3 Mistborn, right? If the Mistborn were done with all 3, but we could ask about that. Can you expand on why silver is effective at nullifying shades and spores, and does it work? Because silver is used on Earth as an antibacterial and antifungal. I love that connection, but I would be lying if I told you that's where I came up with it. I don't want to sound more clever than I am. Silver is like that because I wanted there's a place in White Sand Prime, or White Sand Novel, where we see that people are able to interfere with flows of sand mastery holding people up by mixing in. You stick their arms there and the Investiture whacks things out, right? It's like that needs a straight connection down to the ground, and when something gets muddled out, you can knock a Sandmaster down. I wanted something that could do that for basically all magic systems, something that wasn't just inert, that was destructive. And silver is what I came up with, and the main reason I picked silver is I had not used it as an allomantic metal. It's just what it is. Was not an allomantic metal, and I wanted a metal that did that. There we are. So, does iridium, when alloyed, invert the internal extra axis the metal is alloyed with? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Did odium hijack Braze's original purpose? Yes. I'm not 100% sure what you're saying, but odium does intend to use Braze for its original purpose, or he knows of its original purpose. How about that? Did he hijack it? I don't know if that's the right thing. Will he use it for that? I don't know. Will there ever be a reproduction shard? And did it get turned into endowment, or was there ever? There was never a reproduction shard. Cultivation and endowment cover that. With audiobooks even bigger now. Oh, I scrolled too far.
Went past me too. I don't got it. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. As soon as I get to the bottom of this, it starts scrolling, and I have to be really careful. And so I was going to answer your question. You could ask it again. Could Wade have survived the explosion by compounding gold because he was a Mistborn? No, I don't think he could have, and I think I'm not going to canonize things that you maybe want me to canonize. Let's just raffo that. Is the Dawn Shard that's different one of the ones we know? Raffo on Dawn Shards. Sorry, folks. And thank you for the people responding and boasting my question. Nightstill, I can't remember which one that one is, but great. Can Awakeners use their hair as a color source? Not if it's on them.
Did it again.
Yep. Wow. I need a better way to scroll on these. I think it's not your mouse. I think it's just the system.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything we can do about it. I just need to get to the end and then scroll. Would a Night Watcher Bondsmith be able to create lifelight for radiance? This is theoretically possible. Does a reason shard simply imply the other shards are devoid of it? No. Any more than there being an honor shard implies that the others are devoid of honor. No. Are there now 11 honor weapons blades? Raffo. Could you tell us something fun about the Lonarchs? I mean, you probably already know that Isaac inspired them with concept art. That they were a thing that I kind of wanted something like this, and I'd been devising something, but it didn't have wings. And when I saw Isaac's cool drawing, I'm like, okay, this is what they are. This is what we're gonna do with them. And so, yeah. So thank Isaac. Lana. I was thinking Larkins. I saw Larkins on the page.
It's right under. Yeah.
And it's right under. And were fire lizards from Fern inspiration for Larkins. So there's a fun fact about Larkins. And yes, fire lizards from Fern were an inspiration. So if a spren found a mistwraith, could they inhabit it to get a physical form?
Ooh.
This could possibly work. This is a weird one. I think it could possibly work. Possibly. I don't think it'd be natural, but I like the cut of your jib. Let's just say that. So, does the gravity of the planet you're standing on affect how powerful wind rudder lashings are? Yes. Mostly your perception of what gravity is affects them. But if this makes sense, the amount of investiture required to get to a certain speed does not change. Only the increments that your brain naturally makes them in. Does that make sense, Nano Freak? Who is Kazula, and why are they so controversial in Roshar's history? Raffo. Are Moash's crystal spikes a form of hemalurgy? Yes, they are. In fact, there is a point in, and I've told you guys this before, but just so that if you haven't heard it, there's a point in Way of Kings Prime where they are walking through some tunnels to escape from the city, and that city was a partial inspiration for Urithiru. That's what became Urithiru. And they look down a corridor, and behind that corridor is an unmade spike to the wall with crystal hemalurgic spikes. But we don't go over there. It was a seed for book 2 that didn't happen. So, crystal hemalurgic spikes were were in the Cosmere from Way of Kings Prime. So,
wow.
If Wax has another child, could it be Mistborn? Yes, much more likely to be Mistborn than anyone else born. So, if you hemalurgic spike a sleepless, which of their parts get the power or just the one spiked? They're an individual altogether, so all of them would get the parts. Be kind of hard to get the spiking to work right, but it would transfer to the whole thing. Just like it transfers to you when, not all of your cells are actively touching the spike. Lift's favorite color, neon something. If you showed her neon pink, she'd be all over it. So currently, this is what's the most like a good garish orange, I'm going to say, is what she would like. Did Odium have a perpendicularity on Ashen? That's a Raffo. Would you allow an anime company to produce Yumi the Nightmare Painter film or series? Yes, I would eagerly jump on that. Yumi the Nightmare Painter is one that I would instantly try. Basically, if someone came to me right now, even if the budgets were modest for Yumi or for Tress, I would really consider it. The offer we got on Tress was below modest, and I was worried about it. But particularly if someone had a really good track record, wanted to try a Yumi anime, absolutely on board. Though the one that the anime companies have been most interested in, it's not a lot of interest. So don't clip this and make some big clickbait title. There is no real interest. But the one that I've had inquiries about is Legion. Because apparently what's doing well in anime right now is quiet, sexy man detective types.
Yes. Not looking at Solo Leveling or a couple of those other ones.
Yeah, and so quiet, sexy man detective types.
And with him, you get lots of sexy detective types.
Yes, you get a whole cadre of them. So, will the Prime books ever come out on Audible? I don't know. The problem with the Prime books is I don't want them to be something that somebody finds if they don't already know who I am. I don't want them to compete with the better versions of the books. And I don't want someone to go to Audible, type in The Way of Kings, and find Prime and listen to it. So, can an unoath revive a dead eye to the point they can have surges available to them again? Yes, but the unoath, this is theoretically possible, but it is not a same bond. So in other words, the unoath will not get those surges, and most of the dead eyes are of a sort that would not want to grant them. that gives too much power over each other to the people. And it's not a matter of trust. It's a matter of morality to them. So it's too close. What happens and this is the disagreement. What happens in the Radiant Bond feels too close for some of the Spren to slavery. It's not, in my opinion, and it's not in the other Spren's opinion, but it is in their opinion, and they get to make that decision. Can the door be taken up by a vessel? This is possible. It'd be very hard. And if so, is it more probable than the door being separated into its two parts? Being separated into its two parts, I would say, is a little more likely. Oh, and did Wax have another child? Rafa. Will the final era of Mistborn focus on Hoyd and his apprentices? Yes, you are wise. You are seeing something that I am setting up. You will definitely have some more interaction of Hoyd's apprentices in the final Mistborn series. Was the creation of the evil an intentional result of the splintering of ambition? No. Odium didn't really know what he was doing, but he knew he didn't want to have the same thing happen that happened on Cell, and what happened was worse. So this is why Odium had to recuperate and could not really attack honor and cultivation, and kind of had to sideways work with them a little bit because of what happened there. Wait a moment. Did I say something, Master Tuesday, that was... Yeah. I've given you guys a few good lore drops.
Or should we just pause for a minute?
I'm not good at pausing. Got to go fast. Have I noticed any differences in how the narrators portray your characters versus how you imagine them? Have the narrators affected their development in any way? The most obvious one is me trying to come up with weird accents for Wayne to make Michael's head hurt. I don't know. I don't do this as much as maybe I could, but I also do like cutting out more he said, she says than I used to, just because listening to the audiobook. I like how Michael and Kate do it. They aren't as distracting. Some narrators, it gets really distracting with the attributions, and you just don't need them. I would love, I wish there was something in between the full cast audio and the regular audio where we could release a version that was technically edited, but all that was edited is we take out a lot of the attributions because make them invisible because the narrator's doing a voice. You don't need them. You need them periodically for your eyes, otherwise so let me know what you guys think. Should we try that at some point and just be like, we're going to have someone go through and cut out most of the he said, she says. I told Peter about this idea and he said, no, you can't do that because it'll have to list as edited, abridged. It'll have to list as abridged, and people don't like abridged books.
We'll just have them say it really, really quiet.
So, but yeah, that's the thing I would like to do. I
think that's a good idea.
I'm listening to Tolkien. I haven't noticed it a single time. Andy Serkis is just really, really good at making that said slip out so it doesn't distract. But I've noticed it in other readers. The Andy Serkis audiobooks are so good. Is there a Vorin equivalent to Wedding Band since it would traditionally go on a safe hand? There's not really a Vorin equivalent of that. Not all cultures have that, though it is a useful thing. I think it actually started with the Romans with us.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. Endowment replied to Hoyd's letter telling him to leave Valor alone. Is there some form of prior relationship between the two, Endowment and Valor, before becoming shards? Endowment and Valor do have, don't read romantic relationship into this, but do have relationship. There are, and they've had more dealings since. They have, you could call those two. They've got a good friendship going. How about that? Because shippers want everything to be romantic, you can do your thing, but it's not a romantic relationship. Are there Scadrian Spren equivalents? Have we seen of them if there are? No, this investiture is being used in a different way. Closest you're going to get, there really aren't. There aren't any. I don't want every world to have them. I want the worlds to be able to have their own. You see them on a lot of worlds, but I don't want every world to have them. Okay. Let's do a few more from there, and then we'll come back.
Luca 18 says, in Isles of the Emberdark, we see the Scadrians use a machine to cut Chrysalis's connections between her hordlings.
Yes.
Would an Allomancer burning copper achieve the same result? Similarly, could a hordling be discovered by burning bronze?
What a good question. So this is in the same power portfolio as copper, but an Allomancer burning copper wouldn't naturally just do this. Can they be discovered by someone burning bronze? Again, in the same power portfolio, but no, an Allomancer burning bronze could likely, I would say just would not detect one. And so what we're getting into the space age is we're getting into the ability to reach beyond human limits for achieving things with technological intervention, shall we say, technological development, which is something I wanted to see the Cosmere do because it's something that has happened in our world. We use technology to augment our strength far beyond what we could do. Well, this is what you're seeing happening here.
Are you going to have an equivalent to something like CRISPR in Era 4?
So Era 4, we are working on something. We'll RAFO that.
Okay.
But
I got a RAFO. Yeah.
You got a RAFO. Yeah.
Seth says, I notice a lot of similarities between the Charred and the Inquisitors.
Yes.
Loss of personality, corruption of investiture, bloodlust, violent tendencies, etc.
Yep.
The Scadrian scientists were responsible for teaching the Cinder King how to create them, and they mention how you have to add a quote-unquote special form of investiture to the Sun Hearts in order to result in a charred warrior.
Yes.
My question is...
This sounds like it's going to be a very smart one.
Is that quote-unquote special investiture hemalurgy or connected to ruin?
Yes.
Oh.
Good job.
This is why you don't make your questions yes or no.
Well, no, I don't know if I would have said more. I think that is an excellent question.
Okay.
Sometimes you don't want to ask yes or no questions. Sometimes you do because you want to know if you're theorizing in the right direction. This is the way to ask a yes or no question.
Okay.
I don't know that I would have given any more. And so asking it yes or no lets me say yes rather than RAFO.
Perfect.
And I think I would have RAFO'd it if they would have asked it more open-ended.
Excellent question.
So, yep.
Legion Rip says, in Sunlit Man, there is an incredible amount of investiture at the core of Canticle.
Yes.
We know that Odium, Ambition, and Mercy clashed near Threnody, but that Ambition did not die there. Could Canticle be a grave or tomb for the corpse of Ambition and its investiture?
It could be, but it's not.
Okay. There's a second half if you want.
Okay, go ahead and read it.
It would connect the Threnodites being in both systems. The rings could be intended to keep the investiture from spilling out into the rest of the system and making it, not a second question, and making it incredibly dangerous to traverse like Cell.
This is a great question and a great theory, but I know where Ambition's corpse is and it's not there. So.
Well, I'm glad that is a fictional person.
Yes.
That you know where their corpse is.
Yes.
Seth Krantz says, were magic systems as abundant before the Shattering as they are now?
Yes. They were. They took a little bit of different form, but yes.
Okay.
When you see Dragonsteel, and someone up says here, will you ever read a story about Hyde's backstory? Yes, that's Dragonsteel. You will see plenty of magic.
Okay. The follow-up may not be necessary, but the second question is, did they significantly increase or decrease in number afterwards, or just change?
I think they increased in number because the number of planets increased and the number of habited planets increased and things like that. So, yes, there's just more planets, and the shards are out doing their stuff, and there's,
Interesting.
Harry Kiri Dune says, for a double 10 Twinborn, what would compounding look like? Would they be able to see microscopically, telescopically past the visual light spectrum? Would they be able to see or hear into the cognitive or spiritual realms?
Seeing or hearing into the cognitive spiritual realms, probably not, because that's much more of a seeker ability than it is a tin eye ability. But seeing microscopic and things like that is fully within, like they could probably even see the axis, which is their word for atoms. If you've read Dragonsteel Prime, you know that that's a magic system. And tin eyes could do that. Compounding if you did it right, you could do that.
Fit Wrangler says, is there anything that absolutely cannot be done by Aeons, but can be done by other magic systems?
Yes. Aeons aren't good at replicating Aether abilities. Aeons are not good at replicating anything that requires negative investiture. Aeons are not good at anything that requires like a willful choice and persistent bond. But they can mimic those effects. So there you are. There's a few.
And from Loose there in Telescope.
Here he is.
You said shards need permission to settle the same worlds. In Arrow 2, Autonomy invests Scadrial. Did she get permission?
Autonomy has permission from before the ascension of the Lord Ruler. There's a lore drop for you, and is coasting on that. No, she did not get permission from Harmony.
Okay.
So.
What? Okay.
Yeah. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah. Anyway, but let's just say that there are. I mean, you guys knew this. They know that. There are. Autonomy has had some dealings on Scadrial in the past. They've already known that. That's not a lore bomb for them. But I am confirming it.
Yeah. 15 minutes left. Did you want to finish?
Yeah, we'll finish for 15 minutes on the chat. All right. Clinaxons. I still have to remember that name because I renamed them from. Yeah, they were called something else. Hordes created by Idonosium, if not created by invention. Rapho. Endowment, stay away from your ex. You are bad for her. Does Nightblood grant Zeth all the surges? Nightblood found a way to replicate surges. Yes, he did. So letting him sit and chat with honor blades was a fun thing. Thank you for answering. My pleasure. Why was Ox chosen by Nail and the other high spread and Zeth spread, given his inexperience that he had enough doubts about the mainline Skybreakers considering joining the centers? They didn't know. This was just how he was next in line. It was, they're like, you've waited your time. His questioning was not something that they were aware of. If surrounding metal and edible materials don't block misters from burning it, can that metal be frozen in paraffin oil to delay its reaction when ingested? Yes, I think you might be able to do that. You're talking about like to G8's reaction, like blowing you up reaction. So yeah, I suppose that might work. Will the prologues of Stormlight 6 represents another singular pivotal event? That is what is planned. Not the same, a new event. It's part of what made me decide to divide them in two. Bros before Hoids. Yeah. Let me see. Wow. Wow, it really jumps.
Yep.
Wow. It really jumps.
In all fairness, the chat is also going pretty fast.
And that's what it is. It just, okay. Cosmere MTG win. When Magic is into it. When they're willing to do it. What's the you posted about loving writing in June in 2023? That's the thing I haven't been able to remember. I'm sorry. I haven't ever just looked it up. I need to look it up because I have timestamps on all the chapters I finished, so I could find out which chapter it was. But I don't remember. I think it might have been the wedding.
I was actually going to ask that.
Yeah.
So
my best bet is the wedding, and being able to have to finally kind of canonize what people had guessed long ago.
especially with the ball theme, I was wondering if that's what it was for.
Writing what you wrote about my Shadaliers in this year. When can I read it? In the Cosmere RPG? Maybe in the Ars Arcanum of Ghostbloods 1.
Okay.
That's for those of you wanting to know. That's like our canonical submitted to the Arcanists for review. Explanation of the technology of Malwish medallions, and then how we're doing things like flying cars and stuff on Scadrial. Does flavor of Investiture matter? Do you need Invested Art's native Investiture to work, or could someone make something like Awakening work with Stormlight, or do you need Splash specifically? No, you can hack this way easier if you can strip some of the natural, like if you can get that Stormlight and you can I'd say I have to use the right terminology. Let's see, we have unkeyed Investiture and we have the other term. You get up in front of things, but you gotta. It works a lot better if you can just make it not unkeyed, but
Sorry, I'm not very helpful. It's been too long of a...
Yeah, my brain is starting to hurt. Anyway, if you can strip away the intent from the investor. So there's two terms. One strips away intent. One strips away the identity.
Laundered?
It's laundered. Stripping away both helps, but really stripping away the intent helps is what you're going to need to power another magic system with it. Stripping away the identity is lets you use the investiture of another person as if it were yours. So, and Stormlight doesn't really need that stripped away as much. Is there a rhythm made in Alcium? And if so, could it be played? Raffo. Do stone wards totally rock? Yes, they do. Child is born in the far outer Emberdark. Would they have connection to this realm like a person on a planet, or would they be void of identity? They would have a connection to how they view that outer realm of the Emberdark. So yes, it's the first. So I took a calculus class from Professor Lake in real life. Does that make me implicitly canon in the Cosmere? Yes. Glamdring, apparently you're canon in 2 legendariums. So yes. Is Kelsier telling the full truth about the Pits of Hassen? By his perception. I think so. Will you write a deleted scene in Nightblood's POV talking with the Honor Blades? Probably not. You can fanfic it if you want. Is there any interesting conspiracy theories prevalent in the Cosmere, like flat earthers? Yeah, there's a bunch. I mean, the plague was a bit of a conspiracy theory. There's a bunch going on about where that came from and who caused it, and things like that. The plague that was the common cold. But yeah, I'll have to think about, like, there's a bunch of them. I'm trying to figure out, like there's a bunch about the Sleepless, tons about the Sleepless that I think you would find interesting. Like, are people think they're Aiden Alcium? People think they're Aethers. People think that they're aliens that are neither one. People love to talk about the Sleepless. People love to talk about the Grand Apparatus, or whatever I've called it as canon. I feel like I called it the Grand Apparatus, but then I wrote it in a book as something else, and so now I have to do what I called it in the book.
Grand Apparatus is what I remember.
That's what I remember too.
Maybe I called it something else on accident, not the Grand Apparatus. But anyway, yeah. Who do you think the protagonists of the second half of the Stormlight Archive are? The protagonists of the second half of the Stormlight Archive are our 5 flashback characters plus. So you've got Lift, Jasnah, Renarin, Ash, and Taln. And then you will remain with Kaladin, Shallan, and Adolin. And I'd say you're going to get most everything from them. The Kaladin, Shallan, and Adolin should remain about the same level of import that they have. Of the 5 that I mentioned there, it's likely Lift and Taln will be kind of a little more, well, Jasnah also. Ash and Renarin will probably have be more of a main character in the way that Navani and Szeth were main characters, in that there's not as much time dedicated to them, but we'll have to see when I write the books.
The order that you just presented those, is that the order?
Publication order is, but I can't remember what it said. So Taln, then it's Lift first, then Renarin.
Yep.
And then I'm planning Ash, and then I'm planning Taln, then I'm planning Jasnah.
Jasnah's last,
Yeah,
okay.
Jasnah's last flashback viewpoint character for the Stormlight Archive.
Really?
So that's the plan right now. These kings yeah. How are desserts sweetened in Mistborn Era 1? They do have a lot of honey. They do have a lot of sugar beets. There doesn't seem to be anywhere in the Final Empire sugarcane might grow. But dessert sweets are mentioned in Era 1. They've got also some sugar-like things. Not like Scadrial is an Earth analog, but you'll find them mentioning some plants that that don't exist on Earth, and I think they're making sugar from some of the berries that are mentioned and things like that. Cosmere Commander decks are full. Cosmere MTG set, that's really up to Wizards. I'd be on board for either one. But, they got a lot of stuff going on. Avatar was really great. They just knocked that one out of the park. So
That was until I played it.
Yeah.
My ass got kicked so bad.
You need to come to more of our things. If you only play once a year, how would you be at golf if you only played once a year?
Oh, I'm bad enough at golf, too. But just you guys do Magic when I have theater nights.
Oh, right.
That's why
That's the problem.
More.
Yeah.
Your theater.
The theater is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just wait till we have this dumb pool finished, and then you'll be able to swim, too. How do you feel about your decision to make Venli the main will shaper instead of Eshonai now that you finished the first arc? It's fraught. I wish I would have found a way to make the flashbacks better, and I think I needed to just take a different tactic on them entirely once I had written out things. I'm very pleased with how both Eshonai and Venli's characters turned out, and I really like my goal with Venli was to write an unlikable protagonist who slowly became more likable but not fully likable, right? Like she is so many of the other characters you're seeing in their moments of heroism. And I wanted you to see Venli in her moments of non-heroism. And to just add a contrast, this is a book with Kaladin in it, right? A series with Kaladin in it. I needed somebody that wasn't, that wasn't Kaladin.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I'm really pleased with how that turned out. I really like Venli as a character. She did exactly what I wanted her to. The flashbacks didn't work the way I wanted them to. And so I needed more mystery to them. And that's the only thing that's fraught with that. Otherwise, I really feel great about Rhythm of War, giving it years. We'll have to see how I feel about Wind and Truth, giving it years. I was worried about the science scenes, and I think coming out of them, I'm glad I did them, even though they're a little different. And part of this is we won't get into it. I don't want to talk about book 6 stuff. So, would Szeth be a good rebearer? No. 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 Why would Szeth not be a good rebearer? Szeth is very, if you could get certain promises out of Szeth, maybe. But Szeth, one of the things is Szeth is really easy to manipulate. That's just the problem with Szeth, is he's just so easy to manipulate. He wants to do good so much and it's easy to manipulate that both for what you want and against him.
What about Lift?
Lift would be terrible. You don't want anyone carrying the ring who's going around stealing people's stuff, right?
Fun.
It would be fun, yeah. And Lift is also maybe too powerful. And so who's our best ring bearer? You guys are it's probably...
Taln?
It's definitely, Taln. Taln would be a fantastic ring bearer. And he's really powerful, but Taln would be a fantastic ring bearer. Adolin gets close, but
Adolin was my pick.
Problem with Adolin is he's got a little bit of ends justify the means. That's what's got the division between him and his father.
Right.
I think Adolin's is justifiable, but Boromir's arguments are justifiable,
exactly.
Right? Boromir has good arguments. You don't want someone who wants those arguments. This is why asking about Szeth is a good thought, because Szeth doesn't have those ambitions, but he's so easy to manipulate. But it's interesting. Who would make a really good ring bearer? Who's not invested? Who would be good? Tress, maybe?
Oh, there you go.
I think maybe. She didn't have ambitions until her boyfriend vanished at sea. So I don't know. It's a good question.
That's fun. Yeah.
I think in all of Lord of the Rings, they identified the two people who would be good ring bearers and had them bear the ring, which is why they succeeded. All right, 2 more minutes left, so I got to find a good question here. Let's go all the way to the bottom. All right. Szeth and Kaladin is his Sam, so basically we're there already. Yeah. If Wayne the Lopen and pulled pranks on each other, which would take it too far first? Oh, Wayne, Lift, and the Lopen. Who takes it too far? So Lopen has actually too much self-awareness to take it too far. If you watch, Lopen, particularly after Dawnshard, has figured out that he goes too far. And that's a Lopen big growth moment, and it's really important to him. Lift has, she's a teenager, and that's dangerous. Wayne isn't yet, even in the last book, self-aware. He's gotten a little bit there. I think Wayne takes it too far. I think Wayne is the one.
And with his bank account.
Yeah, and with his bank account, yeah. Can we get some Vasher for the love of God? I will do my best. Tien will be, there you go. You guys found the ring bearer.
Yeah.
It's Tien. Yay, we found our ring bearer. All right. What happened to Nightblood replaced in a sheath of silver instead of aluminum? Very bad for Nightblood, and it would burn away the silver. He would outlast a sheath of silver, but he would not be happy. Mm-hmm. He would be very unhappy. Depends on how much investiture he's currently holding. Do the Rasharan gas giants have Gemheart cores? I had not planned for them to do so.
That's really interesting.
So excellent question. All right, what's our last question? Let's see.
They're gas giants.
Was there a romantic relationship between Aeti and Laris? If so, would you call the destruction attempted schedule a messy divorce? And was autonomy a third member of this? Was Laros cheating? Joker, you continue to have very good questions. I'll just say that. Very good questions to be asking. I'm gonna give you a raffle on that one. So, but there's some things going on in there. So, I think I'm gonna call it there. Thanks for hanging out with me, everybody. Go check out the charity auction. I should mention Wheel of Time Leatherbounds. We're about halfway through our print run, sold out. So, by the way these things go, I can't promise you, but I expect to sell out somewhere mid-January. It could accelerate before then.
I was thinking about a month.
Yeah, I think
current trajectory.
Because what happens is you get really front-loaded. So the fact that we got about half of them sold out, by the way these things work, over the weekend we'll probably get another third of them, and then the remaining a third of what's left. The remaining 2/3 of what's left will take another month. That would be my guess. You got about a month on those, but we'll try to keep you updated on that. We'll, of course, go back to printing, but I don't know that the second printing would even come in next year because we've got a lot of things. It may be late next year. So, We did. I think the first printing was 20,000.
20, kind of 30, but the last 10 we haven't really ordered yet, so kind of mostly 20.
Mostly 20, but there's maybe a chance to get, I don't know. So
That's an Isaac production.
It's an Isaac production thing.
Yeah.
They've just told me we're about halfway.
Yeah.
So between 10 and 15 sold right now.
Yes.
Probably is what we're guessing. So, will World's Fires December take place on? New World. All right. Thank you all. Check out all the stuff that we're talking about. We'll see. We'll be doing some live streams in March for the crowdfunding campaign. So maybe we'll slip a spoiler stream in there. I don't know. They give me a headache, but I do love them. So I'm going to go eat dinner and some peanuts. Thank you all for the birthday wishes also at the beginning. There were a ton of those.
Have a nice night.